Hello, and welcome to the MMA Mic Drop Podcast. My name is Jade Bunky, and I'm joined by the one and only Milo McGregor, who is not only one of the nation's top up-and-coming amateur surfers, but also an emerging MMA analyst. In today's episode, we're going to break down everything that's about to go down at UFC 305, Adesanya versus Dricus Du Plessis. Milo, this is one of the bigger main cards that you can possibly have, or particularly main events, I should say, as opposed to the main card. Or what? Give me your take in terms of how excited are you for the actual main event and the overall main card? How would you grade it overall?
For the main event, I'd give it an A plus because this is like the fight we've been waiting to see.
Yeah.
And for the main card, I think probably an A minus. It's a really stacked main card. Just the rest of the card's not that good.
So, what would you grade it if you put it all together? Prelims, main card, everything.
Maybe like a B plus.
B plus. Okay. I'm actually with you on there. I am pumped. I mean, A plus for that, plus for that. The main event. I think of all the fights the UFC
Yeah.
can make, there are three fights that are on a different tier than any others. Right? It's Adesanya, Dricus Du Plessis. It's Ilya Topuria versus Max Holloway, which has been booked, and I'd even put that just a nudge ahead. And then the fight that they're not making is, Aspinall versus John Jones. I think those are the three fights that are in a completely different stratosphere, and we get one of them here. So I'm pumped on that. I think the main card, is good. The pay-per-view is actually good, but when you go down to the prelims are pretty weak. And I'm with you. I would give it a B plus. So let's get into it with our picks and predictions. This is an incredible matchup. Milo, give me a breakdown. Tell me what you think. Who you picking?
This is. I think it's gonna be a really close fight actually. Adesanya has lost his last fight. Is that what it was?
Yeah, that was his last fight
He
against
lost
Strickland. Yeah.
the Strickland. Yeah, he lost his last fight, but he was a pretty dominant champion, so I think I'm gonna go him by a close decision.
Close decision. Okay.
Yeah,
Do you think any of Dricus Du Plessis' wrestling is going to be a problem for Adesanya?
yeah, yeah. I think he's gonna try to wrestle him the whole time because I think it's his path to victory if he's gonna win.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, when you look at these two, if I'm to break them down, I mean, Du Plessis, I'm looking at the records right now. Du Plessis 21-2, Adesanya 24-3, even though, he has lost recently. Adesanya hasn't lost much in his career, right? He's, one loss was when he went up to light heavyweight as a middleweight to try to capture that belt. He lost 3-2 against Jan Blachowicz. No shame there. He lost to Alex Pereira in a fight that he was winning, and it was a standing TKO in the 5th round. And then, the aberration of all aberrations against Sean Strickland. I do think that was an off night for him. I do not think that is an indicative of how good of a fighter Adesanya is, even at this stage in his career, even though he just, turned 35. Um, I think he's still as elite as they get. And so when you start to look at him, I mean, he's an elite level kickboxer. He's one of the best kickboxers the UFC has ever seen. And if you look at, some of the videos he's posting, he is jacked now. And he's been working with Craig Jones for quite some time. He's been off, what was it? I believe at least a year now. And he's been working with Craig Jones, who's probably one or two best grapplers, in the world,
Hmm.
right up there in that tier. So he's, working on a lot of different things. I don't think the wrestling is going to be as much of an issue given the amount of prep time, because he knew this fight was coming for about a year now, right? Even though it was, it wasn't announced that long ago, because they were trying to make this fight at UFC 300.
Yeah,
And if you really look at Eugene Berryman and the team over at Kick City Boxing in New Zealand, I mean, they really, put these guys through the ringer when they're training, when they have a fight coming up. They push them to the limits. And I think what was interesting, I think in that fight against Sean Strickland, though it was an interesting, maybe a difficult matchup for Adesanya then, I think he was checked out. There was that story, he was out drinking like a few weeks before. That's something you typically don't do during a fight camp, even if it's a like 2 drinks. You just don't do that, right? And so it shows somebody that's still having fun, not completely dialed in. I think it was a complete aberration. The question is, even if I believe that was an aberration, can he still beat Dricus Du Plessis? I mean, Dricus Du Plessis has some finishes. He's got crazy power. And I'm going to just glance at how many finishes. So he has 21 wins, 19 finishes, 9 on the feet, 9, or
Wow.
10 submissions. I mean, the dude finishes everybody. He's going to be the better, probably stronger grappler than Adesanya, or not probably, he will be. The thing is where his vulnerability lies. And even though he has the power to neutralize Adesanya, if you look at that fight against Brad Tavares, where he just comes rushing in, throwing multiple combos, that approach spells danger against Adesanya. Now, we saw against Whitaker, he changed his methodology to a certain extent, right? Or actually, quite a bit. We saw him, fight Sean Strickland a little bit differently. So maybe that's part of the maturation process because he is only 30 years old. He is incredibly dangerous. You have to wonder, given Adesanya's age, 35, I mean, this is the time, guys start slowing down. I don't think this is the time Adesanya starts slowing down. I think he's going to work him. I think DDP could get around, maybe get him on the ground control for a while. But I think there's going to be 2 out of 3 rounds. And the reason why I'm saying 2 out of 3 rounds, because I don't think it's going to the 4th. Give me Adesanya by TKO in the 3rd.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Next up, we have Kai Kara France versus Steve Erceg. Milo, break down this fight. Tell me what you think's going to happen.
Uh, I wouldn't have said this before the Pantoja fight versus Steve Erceg, but Erceg looked really good in that fight. He put up like early. I think if they were to fight again, he would win. But
Wow.
for this fight, I think I'm gonna go Erceg by second round TKO.
Really? TKO? Wow. Tell me a little more.
Yeah,
Why? What do you see?
I think he's gonna pick him apart, and those elbows that he was using were really crazy. So I think he's gonna do some of that.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a fun, co-main event. I mean, it's a really good matchup. And Steve Erceg, I mean, talk about the meteoric rise, right? He comes in his first UFC fight. He gets a number 10 guy. He beats him handedly. He gets 2 more wins. Gets thrown into a title fight where, he lost by a decision, and it was close. Some people, even though I
Yeah,
disagree, thought he won. But what it shows is he can hang with the best in the division. He is that good. And when you look at him, he's a really good grappler, but the thing is he's really fluid. If I'm to pick one word, it's fluid. The way he flows between strikes, certain transition, he's a very fluid and polished fighter. Kai Kara France, more of a kickboxer, lightning fast, throws some good volume. Does have quite a bit of losses on his record, though, although you see a lot of them, I mean, 4 were in the UFC, but 4, those 4 were 2 against Brandon Moreno, former champ Brandon Royval, who fought the champ, and then Amir Albazi, who I watched that fight. He won that fight. There's no way that was a robbery, that split decision. And then a lot of his losses before that were back, when he was so much younger. So I don't put too much weight into that, right now. I think it's a good fight. I I think it's going to be Kai Kara France by decision. So that's my pick. Next
I
up,
see that. Yeah.
yeah, Mateusz Gamrot versus Dan Hooker. Milo, break this fight down. Tell me who you got.
Um, I think I'm gonna go with Dan Hooker. He's just so tough. So I'm just gonna go with him. I think by decision.
By decision, do you think Gamrot's going to give him any trouble? And if so, how?
Yeah, I think he's probably gonna beat him up, but I bet you Dan's gonna like pick his shots and land some good shots.
So you
And
go ahead.
I think he's gonna get close. I think he's gonna get close to finishing him.
You think Dan Hooker's
But
going to get close to finish him, or the other?
yeah,
Okay. Oh wow. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think the most important thing you said, the word there was toughness. It's one of those things you can't teach. He has unworldly toughness. We saw that against Jalen Turner, right? He got his cheekbone fractured. I believe he broke his arm as well, and
yeah,
he still ended up winning a fight against one of the most dangerous guys in the division, who was piecing him up early in the fight. Yeah, he's tough. He can finish. He's got good power. But Mateusz Gamrot, I mean, the dude is 24-2, and his only 2 losses was that split decision by Guram Kudaladze, which many people thought Gamrot won, and then the other one was against Benil Dariush, in a close decision. Maybe that decision wasn't that close. I remember that it was. I think it was a pretty clear decision, but Dariush was one fight away from the title. Um, the one thing, he does get dropped a lot. He's not the strongest guy at 155. He's one of the best grapplers, though. And I think you're kind of seeing it right. I think Hooker can piece him up, and I think he can mitigate some of the takedowns, but I think Gamrot will control this fight enough. And I think he'll win 2 out of the 3 rounds. So give me Gamrot by decision. All right, tell me about the next fight, Milo.
Oh, heavyweight. Tai Tuivasa versus uh Jairzinho Rozenstruik.
You should already know his name,
Um,
but yeah, Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Yeah, tell me what's going to happen in this one.
um, somebody's gonna get laid on. They look pretty heavy, so I think Tai Tuivasa by a first round suffocation.
There you go. That's why you come to MMA Mic Drop, because you get expert picks and
Yeah,
analysis, first round suffocation.
exactly.
All right. Well, I think it's going to be a short fight, and let's break this down a little bit. So, Rozenstruik. Now you got me mispronouncing his name. Rozenstruik is, he's got good kickboxing pedigree, good Muay Thai, but he hasn't looked that good. I mean, his last fight, I thought he looked terrible. I mean, the only reason why he won was Shamil was, out of breath. Talk about somebody that was suffocating himself due to lack of cardio. I mean, that was absolutely terrible. And he was, he was so hesitant at the beginning of that fight. Um, and I've never really been that impressed with Rozenstruik because despite his pedigree, Tai Tuivasa, which is kind of interesting. So there's a lot of people picking Rozenstruik. I haven't even seen the odds. I don't even know what the odds are. I would imagine it favors. Can you look up the odds? I imagine it favors Rozenstruik. But when I look at,
They're not in yet.
yeah, they are. They're somewhere.
This is no odds.
Just try a different
I'm
side of,
looking at it right now.
yeah. So while you do that, I'll continue with breaking this down. So he's coming off a 4-fight losing streak, and you look at to whom he lost. Cyril Gahn. Think about that fight, how he lost. He showed some pretty crazy toughness, and that was when I saw or heard one of the oddest things. I believe it was one of his coaches telling him to be patient. Which, if the other person is more technical, and your path to victory is just to catch the guy, I thought that was some terrible advice, and it ended up his patience allowed him to get picked apart, which happened. Next fight, first round knockout against Sergey Pavlovich. Okay, Sergey's gnarly.
Oh,
Okay, Alex Volkov. I mean, one of the best heavyweights there. Martin Tibura. That one was okay. That was not that good, but we know if Tai Tuivasa gets on the ground, he's not a grappler. And so I went through all of those to bring us to this fight now against Rozenstruik. Milo, what are the odds?
um, it's Tai Tuivasa plus 140 and Rozenstruik is minus 170.
Okay, so Rozenstruik is the favorite, which I expected. I thought they would actually have him as a bigger, favorite, but I think Tai Tuivasa is going to light Rozenstruik up. He doesn't have to worry about the ground. He doesn't have, even though Rozenstruik has better technical acumen on the feet. He doesn't throw enough volume, even though he likes to counter strike a lot. I think Tai is going to overwhelm him. I think he's going to catch him. And I agree with you. It's going to be a first round finish. I don't think it's going to be by suffocation. I think it's going to be by knockout. All right. Next up, Jingliang Li versus Carlos Prates. I think this is a really cool fight. Prates has looked so good. And I'm just going to check this out because he's 19-6. He has 17 wins coming by finish, and I think it's his last 8 fights in a row he's won by knockout. He's on a crazy streak.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he's looked good, and my phone is not loading properly right now, so this app is not loading properly, so I cannot get the details. But he's pretty light on his feet. He does have some crazy power. And Lee is a good fighter. Lee is, he has an all-around good game, has some pretty solid boxing, but I think one of the problems with him is that he's 36. He hasn't fought in almost 2 years. And if you remember, it was a fight against Daniel Rodriguez. It was the one that, I believe it was the one where Chimaev missed weight. And dude had to ended up fighting some guy 10 pounds heavier than him. Didn't get to go into the, what you call it? He didn't get to go into the, was it 10 pounds? He didn't get to go to the press conference with his new suit. He bought a new suit he was excited about. He didn't get to go into the press conference. And yeah, so it's been a while. And what's he going to look like at age 36 with so much time off, even though he is a good fighter. And I just keep looking at my phone right now. And yeah, dude, he's won. Hold on. Oh, that was a decision. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wait, hold on. It keeps freezing up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know. It's anywhere between 7 and 9. My phone keeps freezing up. So yeah, I mean, he's on a roll, knockout roll. I think because of the age, it's going to be a problem for Ling. He is tough, but give me Prates by third round TKO. And I give you third round because Prates can be kind of patient, and Lee is pretty tough. So I'll take him by third round TKO. What do you think?
I think I'm gonna go Prates by decision.
By decision. Do you think it's that toughness with Lee's going to allow him to hang in there a bit?
Yeah.
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 All right. Who's next? Since my
Junior Tafa versus Valter Walker.
Yeah, both these guys kind of suck. Junior Tafa,
Yeah.
he has a brother in there, and so does Walker. That's Johnny Walker's brother. Valter Walker is freaking huge. He's a wrestler, but he lost to Bresky, and Bresky is not that good. He has not demonstrated good fight IQ. Junior Tafa a little lighter on his feet than his brother. Still hits pretty hard. This is going to be a sloppy fight. I think it's going to come down to, does Walker put him on the ground, or does Tafa catch him and put him out? And honestly, I don't know. But because he lost to Bresky, who's absolutely terrible, I'm taking Tafa by third round TKO. What do you think?
I think I'm gonna go Walter by decision.
Really? Okay. So you think he's just going to be able to get the fight to the ground and pretty much lay on him?
Lay on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Joshua Culibao versus Ricardo Ramos, and we'll go a little more quickly through these fights. Culibao, pretty solid fighter. So is Ricardo Ramos. And I just want to look up something on. Okay, yeah, because he did lose a close fight to Lerone Murphy, who Lerone Murphy does look pretty good. He's beat some, and when I say he, oh wait, again, my phone keeps bugging out. My apologies here. When I say he, I'm talking about Culibao. I think this will be a fun back and forth. Give me Culibao by decision.
I think I'm gonna go Ricardo by submission.
Awesome. Casey O'Neill versus Luana Santos. Casey O'Neill was a hot up and coming prospect until she ran into a couple women who were just more experienced, higher up on the rankings, showed certain vulnerabilities. I still think she's good. Give me O'Neill by third round TKO.
I'm gonna go O'Neill by decision.
All right. Next up, we got Jack Jenkins versus Herbert Burns. Jack Jenkins been out for a little while. He looks pretty solid, and Herbert Burns does not. Herbert Burns, although he's a decent grappler, has absolutely no cardio. I think Jack Jenkins who is a good kickboxer, will take it into the second round and will beat Burns in terms of a TKO. But yeah, Burns is probably going to pass out due to lack of oxygen. This guy has absolutely horrible cardio. And he's not fat, which is interesting. All right. Who do you have?
I think I'm going to go Jack Jenkins by knockout.
What round?
First.
All right. Next up, tell me who's next. Or earlier in the
Tom Nolan versus Alex Reyes.
Yeah, so Nolan came out as a pretty hot prospect and then got flatlined in his first fight in the UFC. Bounced back nicely with the TKO of himself the last fight. Still hard to say how good he is. Alex Reyes, that's Dominic Reyes' brother. Before his last fight, he had a 6-year layoff. He had some serious health issues. So, he did not do well in the last fight. I mean, just, a long time off. And this is going to be a tough fight for him. Give me Tom Nolan by first round TKO.
I agree. Tom Nolan by first round TKO.
All right. Kenan Song versus Ricky Glenn. Ricky Venn, that sagey old veteran with some decent wrestling. Not a lot of power, but speaking of power, Kenan Song has some serious power. He dropped Ian Gary. I think it's the only guy to drop Ian Gary. I mean, he was pretty close to finishing that fight
Yeah.
too. I think give me Song. I think he's going to catch him. I don't know when, but give me second round Song by knockout.
I think I'm gonna go Song by decision.
All right. And the opener, Stewart Nicoll versus Jesus Santos Aguilar. I don't know too much about Nicoll. I know he's looks like a prospect that has some interest. Aguilar's a decent grappler. Give me, Nicoll by decision.
I think I'm gonna go Nicoll by submission.
All right. What round?
Third.
All right. All right. So now we're going to go in our next two sections, kicking it with Milo and Kook of the Week. All right, Milo, you had a birthday. Two-part question. How old are you now? And what did you do for your birthday?
I'm 17,
But don't
and
answer
I
that
went to the
question.
beach.
You went to the beach. There you go. Somebody
Yeah.
got in a little bit of trouble at the beach. We're not going to talk about it here, but I'm glad you enjoyed your 17th birthday on the beach.
Yeah.
So awesome. How does it feel to be a year older? Do you feel wiser or just as
I feel wiser.
are you wiser or do you just feel wiser?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how these picks go.
Yep.
Awesome.
That's how we know I'm wiser.
All right. Well, speaking of wisdom, and I should have put this in the beginning, that Paddy Pimblett fight, that was our last card that we broke down. I said that was my most confident pick. Pimblett by submission. So that's some wisdom
That was
there.
smart.
There we go. All right. Now our last section is Kook of the Week. And I'm going to start because I'm going to give the Kook of the Week to myself. We recorded for this last fight night. And there was an issue with the software, and one of the files was corrupted. So we didn't get to put a card out. I didn't even tell Milo that it was corrupted, so he doesn't even know. So you're finding out about it now. So we didn't get a fight up, a prediction show up for the last one. So I am the Kook of the Week. Milo, do you have a Kook of the Week?
I'm gonna have to give it to you now.
All right, that has been earned. All right, yep. All right. Well, thank you all for joining. And before we go, Milo, do you have a last word?
Drop the mic.
We're out.